on Monday where the defense had offered exhibits 29, 30, and 31. Those exhibits related to the violations of our gag order, and those had been entered into evidence. And today he offered an additional 29, 30, and 31. We are replacing today's 29, 30, and 31 with defense exhibits number 65, 66, and 67. Do you have any objections to that, Mr. Hurts?
No, ma'am, I don't.
And is that correct, Mr. Robbins?
That is correct.
Okay. So your next exhibit will be 68, should you have a need for it.
Thank you.
You make sure they're lined up.
Judge, I got it.
Okay. We're good. If somehow you have been able to get in here with the cell phone, I don't want to hear it. Now, I have taken laptops and cell phones, and I said that I was keeping them until the conclusion of the trial. And people have whined and wailed and gnashed their teeth, and I have succumbed. But if I take another one, 3 days into this, and this is not a new rule for the 204, but if I do confiscate your laptop, cell phone, or whatever device, unless you are one of the attorneys and you need your work product, I will have it for the duration. And I don't care who's in ICU. I don't care what work you have. You need to take it outside if you cannot turn it off. And I really do mean that. We're not here talking about a shoplifting. This is very difficult for both families. And we don't need these interruptions.
All right.
You all may be seated. And Mr. Hummers, please call your next witness.
The state called Whitney Hughes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Long. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You appear to be very soft-spoken, so please adjust the mic, and it's okay to shout your answers.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please state your name and spell your first and last name for the court reporter.
Whitney Hughes, WHITNEY, HUGHES.
Okay. Ms. Hughes, we're going to follow the judge's instructions. Pull that microphone
Oh, yeah.
a little closer to you.
Okay. Is that okay?
That is more
Okay.
better. Thank you.
Mhm.
Want the ladies and gentlemen of the jury to hear you.
Okay.
Ms. Hughes, how old of a female are you?
I'm 26.
And what kind of work do you do?
I'm an HR admin. I'm in Plano.
And I want to direct your attention to September the 6th of 2018. Were you living at the Southside Flats?
Yes.
How long had you lived there?
I moved there at the end of June. So June. A little less than 3 months.
So that was June of 2018?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what was your apartment number?
1439.
Can I go to the Shanel?
Yes.
Ms. Hughes, I'm going to ask you to step down for a second.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State Exhibit 30 for B as in Bravo. It is a layout of the fourth floor of Southside Flats along the hallway where this incident occurred. Do you see your apartment on this? Yes. Would you please place this sticky with your name next to your apartment? Thank you. Now, Ms. Hughes, on the night of this incident, do you recall what you were doing?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen about that?
I was watching TV. I'd taken a shower earlier, so I was just painting my nails and watching TV.
Were you in the living room or the bed?
The bedroom.
And what was the first thing that sounded unusual to you?
I just heard the two loud bangs, and that was the first thing I heard.
And the two loud bangs, were they quick in succession, or were there a bang, a long, long pause, and then bang?
It was really quick.
Did you recognize those bangs to be gunshots?
It took me a second to get there, but yeah.
Okay. And what other clues or events occurred to help you get to that those were potentially gunshots?
The hallway's really echoey, so at first I thought maybe someone was rolling something or dropped something, because you can hear a lot of what's going on in the hallway. And so when I heard it, I got up and paused the TV to hear anything else was going on. And yeah.
Okay. And so you said the hallways are echoey. At your time on that floor, had you ever had an opportunity to hear your neighbors from the inside of their apartments?
If you're in the hallway, you can hear from the inside of the apartments when you're walking by them. Yes.
Okay, so you can hear different individuals, I guess, activities inside of their closed doors.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said you paused the TV and listen. Did you go to the door?
Yes.
Did you open the door?
No, I just looked through the peephole.
And when you looked out the peephole, what did you see?
I saw her on the phone.
And when you say her, who are you referring to?
Her. Amber.
The defendant, Amber Guyger?
Yes.
And you pointed in that direction. Can you identify article of clothing she's wearing?
A blue sweater.
Let the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant. And when you saw her on the cell phone, what did you observe?
Well, at first I was concerned if I should call the cops, and then I saw her in her uniform, so assuming that the cops were already there. And she was just standing in front of the door of my neighbor across the way, and she was just on the phone, and she sounded upset.
And so, from your observation through the peephole, it appeared that she was upset.
Yes, ma'am.
And what clues gave you that idea?
Just it sounded like crying, or just the sounds, I guess.
Did you hear any of her conversation or anything that she was saying when she was on the phone?
Nothing I remember her saying, no.
And you said you didn't call the police because she was in a police uniform?
Yes, ma'am.
At some point, did you hear other officers arrive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what did you observe then?
I saw them, they all walked through in front of my door. And then I remember another female officer, she was there, and she said something to another police officer, and then she said, "Stay with her, she's involved." And that's what I remember hearing.
Had you ever seen the defendant on your floor before?
No.
Had you ever seen Bob and Jean before?
No.
indicated at some point that you have had some kind of problems with your door before.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Sometimes it was, I guess depending on if it rained or not, usually the door would shut all the way, but the lock, it wouldn't go directly into the socket. It was like kind of uneven. So you kind of had to pull on the handle towards you to get the key fob to go to lock it when you're leaving. And that was pretty much it.
Did you ever have that or encounter that problem on the inside of the door?
Not that I remember, no.
Okay, only on the outside when you're leaving? It was kind of hard to lock on the way out?
Yes. Yeah, because you're in your inside, I guess you can push when you lock it, and then on the outside you're pulling, so it's more, you have to force it more, I guess.
Now, in all fairness, you say you were watching TV and painting your nails. Did you hear any commands or any loud voices before you heard the gunshots?
No, ma'am.
But you said the hallways or the walls, are they pretty thin on the inside of your apartments as well?
Not that I didn't think so, just because I never heard any noise from my next door neighbors. Really, everything I heard was just coming from the hallway.
So inside of the hallway, it echoes.
Yes.
So perhaps what if, let's say one of your neighbors' door was open, would that project the voice out into the hallway?
I'm not sure.
Pass
Ms. Hughes, I just have a few questions. You moved into the South Side Flats around June of 2018, is that right?
Yes, the end of June.
Okay, oh, the end of June. So at the time of this incident, you've been there about a little over 2 months?
Yes.
Okay. And you lived there with your boyfriend?
Yes.
His name's Zach?
Yes.
But he wasn't there at the time?
No.
Okay. And you lived in 1439?
Yes.
Okay. And in the time you've been there, I believe you've stated previously in another hearing that you had parked on the lawn floor on 2 different occasions.
Yes.
And walked down the hall. On one of those occasions, walked all the way. You were on the 3rd floor by mistake, I believe.
Yes.
And you walked all the way to, it would have been 1339 and put your key.
Yes, I did once. Mm-hmm.
And you walked down the hall a second time, but you realized you were on the lawn floor before you made it all the way to 1330.
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk about that for a few minutes.
Okay.
Did you believe, let's talk about the time you went all the way to the wrong apartment of 1339. Did you believe you were parking on the 14th floor when that happened?
The 4th floor, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4th. Are the 3rd and 4th floor, do they look exactly alike?
Close. Yeah.
Is there any markings like a big 4, a big 3? At that time, were there any markings that distinguish the two that you could see on colors or anything like that?
There was, for the reserve spots, it indicated it would start with the number of the floor, and they were like a little red in front of the spot. So usually that's what I would look for, but nothing big or anything like that.
So you missed it on those 2 occasions?
Yes.
All right. And was this when you were coming home from work?
Yes.
What time do you usually get home?
At that time, around 6.
Okay. All right. Judge, I'd like to offer, which we stipulated to earlier, I think it states 261. $261 for all purposes.
No objection.
It's a dude.
And I'm going to play you, there's two videos on this disc I'm going to play you. One is, so you know what we're seeing, one is going to be, there's no noise, it'll be walking from the fourth floor garage down the hallways, probably up to your apartment, okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to ask it to be paused a couple of times, okay?
Okay.
All right, you see that 4, that's on the inside of the elevator door, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it fair to say back at that time, it was easy to miss?
Yes.
Since this incident, have larger numbers been placed in the garage?
Yes.
All right. Go for it, please. Door, and that takes you down the first hallway, is that right?
Yes.
Now, some of the residents have doormats, like we see one coming up on the right that's brown and black, that they place in front, and others don't, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Here's if we could stop it there, looks like a doormat on the left that has pineapples on it, rather distinctive, is it not?
Yes.
Had you noticed that mat before when you walk into your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. Same thing for the black and brown one, had you noticed that before?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead. Stop there. There's another one just to the left there that looks to be a solid color, maybe some type of black marking in the middle. As you notice that, Matt, walking to and from your apartment?
Not in particular.
Okay. Good. Now, as we win the hall takes a left, you turn to the left, and then your apartment's going to be down on the left. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And stop there, please. Is that another mat? Is that your apartment right there?
No, I'm one more, I think.
Okay, so that's your neighbor's mat. Okay, go ahead. Let me stop right there. You see that pillar to the right? There's some fire doors there. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And does that pillar stick out about a foot or 18 inches or so?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And the mat we see to the left coming up next, is that your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. What color is that?
It's just that basic brown doormat, like every doormat.
All right. We can just get a little further. Stop right there. All right. So that's your apartment. That's where you'd go to every day.
Yes.
All right. And again, we can see the pillar that sticks out right in that area by the fire.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to show you now same type of video, just on the 13th floor, okay?
The third floor?
Oh,
Yeah.
third floor. Thank you. And you parked on the third floor mistakenly twice before this incident?
Yes.
Okay. We can just publish that. Now we're looking at the elevator, essentially, other than if you're able to see the reserved parking or get up close to the elevator, they're built and are the same color, is that correct?
Yes.
When you are getting out of your car and you go to coming from the garage into you go across this little bridge we're about to see, do you ever glance out and take a view of the skylines, or you just go straight from the garage into that door?
Just through the door.
Okay. That makes sense. Now let me stop it right there. So let's talk about the occasion that you went all the way to the wrong apartment, 1339. When you came up to the door here, there was nothing, there's no 3 near the doorway on the wall there that would have given you or alerted you that you were on the wrong floor. Is that right?
There wasn't a number, I guess.
Okay. Looks just like it is now in the video.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Oh, did we do jump there? We could go back as we're opening that door, please. And stop it once the door's open. Once the door's open, please. Let me get it set. Okay, it's right there. You see that doormat there to the left?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of got, I guess you'd call it like river rocks, looks like. Covered. Distinctive doormat. Would you agree?
Yes.
When you went in on that occasion that you went all the way to the wrong apartment, you didn't notice that as you walked down the hallway, did you?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Go ahead. And the coloring of the walls and how the walls are built, where the fans are, they're the exact same as they're on the 4th floor. Is that right?
Yes.
And as you walked on the 3rd floor on that occasion, you didn't notice that the pineapple mat was missing, or the brown and black mat was missing on this hallway, did you?
You could feel, I didn't notice, it just felt something was weird, but I kept going.
All right. And you said this was after your off work, so this will be after 6 p.m.
Yes.
I take it you put in a full day.
Yes.
Now we'll take a left here. There's another mat at that door. Pause it, please. Okay, you see that big plant that's sitting outside next to a mat by that door?
Yes.
All right, now on that day, you would have walked past that and taken no notice of it, would you?
I did notice it. That I did when I walked past it, yes.
Okay, but you kept walking to the, did you think maybe someone put a plant out or something like that?
Yeah, like they just added something
Added
else.
something to their door? Okay. Go ahead. Have we gone past what would be 1339? We can back that up. I might need a little help from you. You could tell me what would be 1339.
This next one on the left. I think there's a,
It's got a wastebasket outside.
yes.
You'd stop it there. Do you see any mat there by the door, or is it just have the wastebasket outside?
Just the wastebasket from what I can see.
Okay. And I'm not trying to make fun of you or anything. I just want to demonstrate how this can happen. And on that occasion, you went, did you actually put your key fob in the door?
I did. I remember them having a mat, though.
think they did?
That could have been on a different time.
Because I know there was one other occasion that
Yes.
you got on the third floor by mistake.
Yes.
And once you put the key in, is that when you figured out you actually on the wrong floor?
Yes.
And another thing, the numbers on these apartments, they're different from other apartments you lived in.
Yes.
Usually, the apartments you lived in the past are the numbers right there on the door.
Or next to it, just lower and in little, not actual things on the wall, not a light.
Okay. Kind of high level.
Yes.
And these are what, up a little higher and they're illuminated?
Yes.
Did that make them a little harder to see?
Yes.
And once you developed that habit, did you actually look for the number, or you just kind of could always sense right where your apartment was?
I didn't look prior, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. A couple of questions now. You mentioned your door, your apartment door, that when it rains or it's humid, that it has trouble. You have trouble pulling it closed from your outside.
It closes all the way. It's just when you try to lock it, the bolt isn't lined up all the way with the notch in the wall.
Okay.
So it would like lock halfway, and then you'd kind of have to pull and
Pull it and
all the way.
Then it'll go all the way. All right. So maybe it expands or something due to the humidity or something like that.
Yes,
But you notice it always happens when it's raining.
something like that.
Okay.
Yes.
You remember on this day, September 6th, 2018, did it rain a lot during the day?
Not that I remember. No.
Okay. And again, Zach was not there. You were getting ready for bed, I guess, and just relaxing. Is that right?
Yes.
And the TV was in your bedroom,
Yes.
and you had that on,
Yes.
doing your nails, just in the bed.
Yes.
And when you first heard the two gunshots, you weren't exactly sure what they were.
Yeah, it took me a second to get there, but yes.
Okay. I mean, I think you described it might have been something, dropping something like pans or something. You weren't sure what, and then you put it together.
Yes.
Now, as far as noises, if someone's in the hallway, you can hear that.
Yes.
If you're in your apartment, the door's closed, right?
Yes.
But if you had a neighbor in their apartment, and you're in your apartment, you weren't hearing what was going on in their apartment.
I could hear the people below me. I don't know if that's just because they were loud, but yeah, next to me I didn't hear anybody.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Just a few questions.
Go ahead.
Ms. Hughes, this humidity and issue with your door, you're talking about the deadbolt actually engaging, is that correct? Like you have to pull the door, kind of pull it a little tighter to engage the deadbolt lock?
For it to go all the way in, yes. It would still lock, because sometimes I didn't feel like dealing with it in the morning, so I would just half lock it, I guess, but it seemed to close, or to stay locked, so. But yeah, to get it all the way, for the key to go, totally flat, you'd kind of have to mess with it.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear that it's not that the door would not close in humidity. That's not what you're saying, correct?
No, correct, yeah. It would completely close. It was just locking.
That's what I wanted to make sure. And then the time you did go to the wrong floor, wrong apartment, you said it felt different.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
It was almost like deja vu or something, that same sort of feeling, like I thought I knew, like, it seemed right, but it felt weird, so, but not enough to even turn around. The one time, I stopped at the corner And then the other time, I actually went all the way, but it just, you could feel it, something was weird.
Okay, so let's take those two different times and talk about it. The time you actually went all the way to the wrong apartment door and engaged the key, what happened?
It, the lock flashed red.
And was that an indicator you were in the wrong place?
Yes.
And then the second time when you went to the corner, what occurred when you hit the corner to let you know you were in the wrong place?
I think it might have been that plant, or it must have been that because it was that second time I actually realized that I was on the wrong floor.
And you're talking about the plant we just saw in the video on the
Yes,
floor?
on the right, after you turn the corner.
The big iron type sitting outside?
Yes.
Okay, so the first time you went to the wrong door, you put the key in and the light blinked red.
Yes.
And then when you did it the second time, you noticed the landmarking being the big vase or plant on the outside.
Yes.
That's it.
Not to put it in.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes, Your Honor.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
They called Alyssa Kinsey.
Testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name and spell your first and last name for the court reporter.
Alyssa Kinsey, first name Alyssa, last name Kinsey.
And Ms. Kinsey, where do you work?
I work in the aviation industry.
What do you do?
I work for airline and pilot training, doing operations.
Are you have the benefit for like buddy passes and stuff?
I'm working on that.
Okay. I want to take your attention back to September the 6th of 2018, okay? At that time, were you living at Southside Flat?
Mm-hmm.
You have to say yes or no for the court reporter.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. How long had you been living at that apartment complex?
I moved in about 4 months prior.
And when you moved in, did you meet Botham John that day?
Yes, the night I moved in.
Tell us about the day you met Mr. John.
So we had spent all day moving, and I went out on the patio to kind of relax. Our patios are about maybe 8 inches apart. I was sitting out there having a glass of wine, trying to relax, and he came out, and I think I scared him, and we just started kind of chatting about where we worked and living in Dallas, and living at Southside Flats, and where to go eat, and all that kind of stuff. So just a really friendly chat.
And Ms. Kinsey, are you not originally from Dallas?
I'm from Fort Worth.
And at the time, what was your apartment number?
1480.
May I place the witness on?
Yes.
Hey, the witness, step down.
Yes.
Step down.
Sure.
Ms. Kinsey, I'm showing you what's been marked and admitted as 34B, State's Exhibit. It is a corridor, large print of the area in which Mr. John's apartment is located. Do you see your apartment located on this board?
Yes.
Right here. Okay. And do you know if 1476 was occupied on the night of this incident?
I don't know.
Thank you. So, Ms. Kinsey, you said that your balcony is probably, would you say, 8 inches from Mr. John's balcony?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
Okay. Did you ever have the opportunity to hear him or from inside of your apartment while he was inside of his?
Only one time he had his back door open, and I think the basketball playoffs were going on, and so I could kind of hear him kind of whooping and hollering. But my back door was open as well, so I think that was probably part of it. But outside of that, I couldn't ever hear through the wall.
Now, I want to focus your attention to the night of this incident. What were you doing in the evening hours on September 6th, 2018?
Right when it happened, I was sitting on the couch on FaceTime with my boyfriend, chatting.
And you were on the couch in the living room?
Yes, ma'am.
Is your apartment the same layout as Mr. Jones' apartment, the A3?
I think it's the same size and layout. I'm not sure if they're mirrored images or not, but same size.
Okay. And so you're FaceTiming with your boyfriend, and what did you hear?
Yeah, so we're chatting, and all of a sudden I heard a very loud, sort of metallic sound. It sounded like two parts to one noise, if that makes sense. My boyfriend could hear it through the phone as well. We both stopped for a second, and about 5 seconds later, it sounded like a commotion, like a man's voice and a woman's voice, some like yelling, and it sounded like running or slamming, something like that. So at that point, I jumped up from the couch and ran to my front door to look out the peephole. I couldn't see anything, so I put my ear to the crack to kind of listen. At that point, it was silent for about 10 seconds, and then I heard what sounded like a female calling 911.
Can you describe, did you look out to see who the female was?
I couldn't see anybody, I could just hear.
Okay, what did you hear?
It was a little bit muffled. I could hear her saying apartment 1478, some stuff I couldn't hear, and then shot.
So when you hear the two noises, you didn't immediately recognize that they were gunshots?
Within 2 seconds, I sort of figured that's what it was. It was just so unlike it to hear. Our apartment seems very safe and secure, and I, at least knew my neighbors by sight and some by name. So initially, I couldn't figure out why that would be happening. So my first thought was, it can't be. And then I'm like, well, no, I think it was.
And those, I guess the two shots you heard, were they in quick succession?
Yes.
And you said you heard some commotion afterwards.
Yes.
Could you tell where the commotion was coming from?
Sounded like, from the hall, or it wasn't, on the other side. I couldn't hear it through the wall. It sounded like it was coming more from like the hallway area.
Was your TV on when you were on the phone or FaceTime with your boyfriend?
No, ma'am.
Did you pause your conversation with your boyfriend when you heard the gunshots?
The sound stopped us both once we heard it.
And so your attention immediately shifted to where the noise was coming from?
Oh, yes.
And so the commotion, based on what you heard, was not coming from the walls next door in the Jones apartment, but it sounds like from the hallway area?
It sounded like it, yeah.
Did you ever open your door to see what was going on in the hallways?
After the police started kind of running down the hallways and showing up, I did open my door, and I was instructed to go back inside.
Did you ever look out at your patio door to see what was happening?
Yes.
Okay, when you looked out, what did you see?
So after I heard what I thought was a 911 call, it was quiet for a minute or so. So I went to my back door and went out on the patio to see, I don't know if I could see police coming or somebody running away, or just to kind of, look. And I stepped outside, and I was still on the phone with
with my boyfriend, and I noticed that Bo's lights were on in his apartment at that point. And I made a comment. I wonder if I should, knock on his window and see if he heard anything or he knows what's going on. My boyfriend's like, you probably should just go back inside. So I did.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about that. When you went out on the patio and you looked and saw that Bo's lights was on, had the police arrived yet?
No. I could see them coming down Lamar, looking this way. I could see a couple on the bike cops, and then I could hear sirens starting to come, towards the building.
When you went out to the patio and saw that his lights were on, was that before or after you heard what you thought somebody making a 911 call?
I heard the 911 call, then I went out on the patio.
Do you recall hearing any other conversations or voices from the hallway other than the officers telling you to kind of go back inside?
Once the police officers arrived, I could hear them talking about doing CPR and asking where the stretcher was. I could hear a female hyperventilating, but outside of that, I didn't hear a whole lot of conversation.
Now, Ms. Kinsey, at your time at the apartment complex, have you parked on the wrong floor before?
Once I parked, yes.
And what were you doing when you parked on the wrong floor?
I was on the phone.
You was on the phone with whom?
My boyfriend.
So when you parked on the wrong floor, you were on the phone with your boyfriend, and is it fair to say you were distracted by that conversation?
Yes, I would think so.
Do you recall what floor you parked on?
I parked on 3.
So you didn't go all the way up?
There's a lot of turns in the parking lot, yes, so I just went up to 3.
Have you ever went to the wrong door?
No.
At some point, do you recall when Mr. John got his red floor mat?
I think he had it when I moved in, as far as I can remember.
Do you recall making fun of him about that mat?
Yeah. Well, we were making fun of it. We walked by, and it was super dirty. And I told me and my boyfriend were laughing about it, and I think he made a comment to him out on the patio about it. Yeah.
Would you say it's pretty noticeable though on that hallway?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Ms. Kinsey, my name is Robert Rogers.
Hey.
I have a few questions for you. Try to make it painless and get you out of here, okay?
Okay.
So the time you parked on the wrong floor, you're safe to say just on automatic pilot, talking on the phone, and you're turning, and stop, where by feel you felt you were on the 4th floor, correct?
Initially, when I parked,
And then I believe you, at some point you looked out and saw, you didn't see the roof, which you're used to seeing because you parked on the 4th floor.
right.
And that's what caught it. It wasn't any numbers or anything. It was, you looked in the right spot where you could see the roof or not see the roof, and that's how you caught it.
Right. Yeah.
Now, with regard to 1478 and Mr. John, you normally wouldn't hear anything through the walls, correct?
Correct.
And there was one time where both your patio doors were open, and you could hear the whooping for the playoff game, correct?
Right.
Other than that, there wasn't, you wouldn't normally hear noises through the walls, correct?
Right, I can never hear.
And I just want to get the timeline correct. So you're FaceTiming with your boyfriend, and all of a sudden you hear this loud noise. It sounds like is it accurate to say just really rapid, two loud noises that make it sound like one?
That's right.
And so then you're trying to figure out what's happening in about 10 seconds of silence, I mean, just estimation. And then you hear a voice from the hallway saying 1478, and that's when it sounds like the female voice is on 911. Is that correct?
Not exactly. So when I heard these shots, I was sitting down and I sat for about 5 seconds, 10 seconds. What made me jump up to realize it was extra irregular was the commotion, the sounds, the yelling, the running. That's when I got up from the couch, went to the peephole. About maybe a few seconds later, maybe a minute later, that's when I heard the phone call.
And you heard 1478.
Yes.
I mean, that's the words that you can make out of these.
Right.
And then after that, you went back in your apartment, correct?
Right.
Then you go to the balcony or the patio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's after that you noticed that the lights were on.
Right. Once I was on the patio, I looked.
Nothing further.
Nothing further.
May she be excused.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Shanel Bly.
Please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Ms. Bly, would you state your name and spell your first to last name for the court report?
Yes, my name is Shanel Bly, and that's Shanel.
Last name?
And then last name Bly.
And Ms. Bly, where do you work?
I work currently at my iLab in Louisville. I'm an assistant store manager.
And I want to direct your attention to September the 6th of 2018. Were you a resident at the Southside Flats?
Yes, I was.
And where did you live in that apartment complex at that time?
1384, apartment 1384.
Apartment 1384?
Mm-hmm.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Now, Ms. Bly, I'm going to ask you to put this sticky where you would see your apartment located on this State Exhibit 34 B as in Bravo. Do you see that? State of the row of apartments, so the corridor, that's the corridor. Yes, okay. Thank you. Now, Ms. Bly, you're located on the 3rd floor, is that correct? That's correct. How long had you lived in that particular apartment on this incident?
In this incident, a little under 2 years.
Okay. And since then, you've relocated to a different apartment in the building, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
On the night of this incident, did you hear any of the commotion that was going on the 4th floor?
I didn't hear any commotion. I heard a noise, but not any commotion,
Okay.
anything specific.
All right. Did you hear the police arriving?
Yes,
Sirens?
I did hear that, yes.
Did you hear any gunshots or anything like that?
I heard something that sounded like a gunshot, but I thought it might have been a car backfiring or something like that. So I didn't think it was a gunshot.
And is that probably because it was uncommon to happen in that particular apartment complex?
Yes, correct.
You're on the third floor. Is it fair to say when you exit the parking garage, may I approach Shanel?
Yes.
When you exit the parking garage, looking at State's Exhibit 34A, on the third floor, you would insert this corridor,
Yes.
okay? And then where would you go to get to your apartment?
I would go straight ahead because I'm right there.
You're right here on the corner. Is that a yes? You have to say yes or no for the record.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And so when you come here, this is your apartment, correct?
Yes, that is my apartment. Was my apartment.
Okay. Do you have any decorations outside your apartment when you lived at 1384?
Yes, I did. I had a red and beige mat and also a decorative, like aesthetic flower, tall flower.
And when was that flower placed outside of your apartment at 1384?
It was a little after I had renewed my lease for my second stay at the apartment. So I would say a little bit before, probably February.
February of 2018?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, yes.
So I'm going to show you now what's been marked as and admitted previously as State's Exhibit number 76. Is that a photograph of your front door when you lived at apartment 1384?
Yes, that is the front door of my apartment.
Okay. And so if someone was to walk down that main corridor on the third floor and I guess hit what is the V between the two corridors, you're going to bump into your apartment and you're going to see this face.
I'm going to object to speculation on what someone else would see.
Overruled.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, because this vase has been sitting there at least since February of 2018.
Yes.
Okay. When did you relocate that vase?
The only time that it's been relocated is when I moved my apartment.
And when was that?
That was earlier this year,
So 2019?
2019. Mm-hmm.
No objection.
Thank you very much for your excuse.
All right, thank you.
Next call is Dr. Waleska Castro.
You gave me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please make yourself comfortable.
Can I proceed, Judge?
Please.
You ready, Dr. Castro?
Yes,
Good afternoon.
good afternoon.
Would you please state and spell your full name for the court's reporter?
My name is Waleska Castro, Waleska
And Dr. Castro, we're having to call you a little bit out of order. We were planning on calling you yesterday, but you have to be down in
McAllen.
McAllen tomorrow to testify on another case. So your testimony, we'll have it now, and we'll fill in some of the background information for the jury today and tomorrow. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you for making this work for everybody. I know you're very busy. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what it is you do for them?
I am a trace evidence examiner at the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences, also known as SWIFS, also known as Dallas County Crime Laboratory.
Okay. What do you do for SWIFTs?
I am a trace evidence examiner, and as a trace evidence examiner, I look at trace materials that could be transferred or left behind in a crime scene, and one of those trace materials will be primer gunshot residue.
Okay. And can you tell me why gunshot residue may or may not be important in a forensic setting?
It could provide helpful information, especially when somebody says or claims that haven't fired a firearm. The gunshot residue on the hands of a person will say the opposite, that there was some shooting incident and that person was involved.
Okay. But on the other hand, gunshot residue analysis or any gun primer analysis, it could also not really answer any questions. It just depends on the facts of the case. Right?
Correct. This particular case, I will report whether gunshot residue is present or not on a specific surface, and I will give possible explanations whenever gunshot residue is present, but it's up to the details of the case, other evidence or circumstances to give a weight which one of these possibilities is more or less likely the explanation for the presence of gunshot residue.
Okay. So just in a hypothetical sense, I suppose, well, let me just do this. I know that we all know you if you testified in every court, but I take for granted that the jury's probably never met you. What is your training and experience that qualifies you to be a gunshot residue analyst or a trace analyst expert in this particular state in this jurisdiction?
I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and a master's degree in chemistry, both from University of Puerto Rico. I also have a PhD in chemistry from Florida International University. Additional to that, I went through training at SWIFS for the analysis of evidence for the presence of gunshot residue using scanning electron microscopy with energy dispersive X-ray spectrometry, or SEM-EDS. I am currently proficient at performing this test, and additional to that, I have a forensic analyst license granted by the Texas Forensic Science Commission.
Okay. And would you let the ladies and gentlemen of the jury know what is the process, I guess, the typical process for trying to collect gunshot residue evidence on a physical item?
There is a gunshot residue collection kit that it's provided to the agencies. This collection kit will have something we call sample stubs, and basically they are devices that are used to collect or lift residues from hands or clothing or any surface suspecting of having gunshot residue. Those sample stubs are submitted to the laboratory for analysis, and I will do the analysis, the corresponding analysis.
Okay. And in this particular case, was a gunshot residue kit submitted, actually a couple of gunshot residue kits, submitted to SWIFT to see whether or not there was particles consistent or characteristic with gunshot residue contained on the kits?
Yes, there were some kits.
Okay. Do you remember how many?
There were 3 gunshot residue kits.
Okay. And can you tell me where those, well, let me just ask you this. I think it would be easier if I just asked. Were the indications from the paperwork that they were going to be in and around a door, an outside door?
2 of the gunshot residue kits were labeled as from a door on the right side, and another gunshot residue kit was from Botham John from the left and back of the right hand of that individual.
Okay. And from the kits that were submitted from the door area, did it indicate an inside door area and an outside door area?
Yes.
Okay, so again, we'll get Ranger Adcock, we presume will testify later on this, but an outside door, a door that leads to the outside of your house, like your front door, there could be a wall portion of that on the inside and a wall portion of that on the outside. Might that be a reason why it was labeled outside and inside door?
I guess.
Okay, fair enough. We'll get that from Major Adcock. May I approach the witness, Judge?
Yes.
Did you, Dr. Castro, did you generate a report based on your findings?
Yes.
All right, and I'm showing you what's marked for identification, the State's Exhibit number 282. Is that a fair and accurate copy of your report in this particular case?
State's Exhibit 282 appears to be a copy of my report that I produce on IFS 1816653.
Okay. And is this going to be concerning a complainant by the name of Botham Shemjan?
Correct.
And would you indicate as a suspect Amber Guyger?
Correct.
Okay. And are you a custodian of records for the Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences?
Yes.
I offer States 282.
No objection.
It's a bit.
Dr. Castro, based on the analysis in your report, or as documented in your report, on the outside of the door, did you indicate locating 5 particles consistent with gunshot residue?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell me what that means to be consistent?
When I look or I put samples through the analysis for the presence of gunshot residue, I look for 2 types of gunshot residue particles. Particles characteristic of gunshot residue will contain primarily the chemical elements antimony, barium, and lead. And the chemistry of these particles are rarely found on particles from any other source different from the discharge of a firearm. The other type of particles would be particles consistent with gunshot residue, and these particles could have a combination of elements, either barium and aluminum, or barium and lead, or barium and antimony. These particles consistent with gunshot residue will be produced from the discharge of a firearm, but there could be other particles with similar chemistry that are produced or they are found in the environment on relatively common sources. So the particles found on this particular case, the 5 particles consistent with primary gunshot residue, they consisted of the elemental profile barium and aluminum, and they are consistent with primary gunshot residue. However, some environmental sources could produce similar particles.
Okay, so similar particles could be produced from firing a handgun or having transfer from a handgun, or from an environmental source that has nothing to do with the handgun.
Correct.
Okay. And so, as far as the labeling that was submitted by the police agency and how you documented, we'll just start with this first one. 5 particles consistent with GSR from the sample stub from the inside door face of the outside door right side.
That's correct.
Okay. And then there was another sample stub that was labeled as the stucco area of the outside door right side.
Correct.
Stucco kind of like being an exterior building material for a home or an apartment, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so in that particular location, from that stub, you found 1 particle that was consistent with GSR, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, same because it's consistent. It could be from a gun having been fired nearby. It could be from someone who had handled the gun that touched it and transferred it, or it could be from an environmental source unrelated entirely to guns.
Correct. The type of particle found on the stucco was barium aluminum as well, and these barium aluminum particles are also found on fired fireworks or some deployed airbags from a vehicle.
Okay. So those could be some of the external non-weapons that could be an environmental cause.
Correct.
Okay. And then on the description of the inside door trim, on the inside door, right side, did you find, or on the GSR stub, did you locate 2 particles characteristic of primary gunshot residue?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And can you tell me why they were characteristic of GSR?
Because they contain the chemical elements antimony, barium, and lead. And that chemistry, classifies them as particles characteristic of gunshot residue.
Okay, and similarly, 1 particle characteristic on the back of the left hand of both Michelle and John.
Correct.
Okay? For the same reason, it's going to contain the three elements that you're looking for to make a characteristic.
Correct.
Determination. Okay, so let's talk about how this could have got there. If we have a case where we know from the facts, it's not a mystery, that a gun was fired in a habitation, in an apartment dwelling, there is really no mystery that there probably is going to be GSR. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And if you're dealing with police officers, do you know that they regularly qualify and fire for training purposes their handguns?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Do you know police officers, do they carry weapons?
They carry firearms, yes.
Right. And do you understand that they have to train with those guns fairly regularly? I
am assuming.
Okay. So if police officers have fired their guns in training and they've been put in a holster, GSR can be transferred from just mere touch. Is that fair to say?
If I fire a firearm, just the action of firing in the firearm will put gunshot residue on my hands. So in that scenario, if a police officer is training and fires a gun, there will be gunshot residue on the hands until the person removes the gunshot residue from the hands by physical means.
Like washing them?
Like washing your hands or wiping your hands against your pockets or any other surface.
Okay. So if, let's just say a person were to fire a gun in a room that's a third this size, and they fired it with their hand, and then they went and they touched the hand of an individual. We'll say that they shot a person, and then they touched the hand, or they touched the person that they shot. Does it surprise you that there would be GSR transferred?
There could be a transfer from the hands of that person firing the gun to the hands of, or the area of that other person that is being touched.
So the person who's been shot, just because that person may have a GSR particle on him, does not indicate with any certainty that that person fired a gun himself, right?
No, it will mean that either the person fired the gun, the person was in the proximity of the gun when it was fired, or that the person touched or handled anything with gunshot residue. And victims, I have had cases where the victim has been shot at and died, and there is no gunshot residue on the hands of that person, and I have seen the opposite as well, that there is gunshot residue on that person receiving the gunshot. So it all depends on the specific circumstances of the case, whether you will find gunshot residue on the person that received the gunshot wound.
Okay. And if a number of police officers, including a police officer who in fact did fire a gun within an enclosed area, were walking about that particular area and touching parts of the door to open it and close it, would it surprise you that GSR could be found on those particular locations?
Gunshot residue could be transferred to any surface in this particular scenario. It could be transferred to the doorknob or the wall. If I have gunshot residue on my hands and I touch something else, the gunshot residue from my hands will transfer some of them to that other surface.
Okay, and then with respect to the GSR that was found on the left hand of the complainant in this particular case, because of the potential, if there had been contact between the shooter and the complainant, because of the potential for transfer, you're unable to give any kind of a range of fire determination. Is that accurate?
Range of fire would be a different testing performed at the laboratory. This type of gunshot residue that I look at, it's not suitable for that type of analysis.
So you can't give us any kind of an expert opinion. You wouldn't even try and give us an expert opinion as to how far or how close the shooter was to the complainant.
No, I can only say that gunshot residue, once it comes out of the gun or the firearm, will travel certain distance downrange and to the sides of that firearm. And the quantity and how far it goes, it will depend on the type of firearm, the type of ammunition, and the environmental conditions at which the firearm was fired.
Okay, and that's assuming that it just goes direct from the gun to the place where it's deposited. If it is accounted for because of a transfer, then there could be an indefinite length.
Can you repeat that?
I said, so you could be 100 feet away from me. If I shoot a gun, I'm not even in your proximity, then I come up and I hold your hand. GSR could be found on your hand, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in that kind of situation, you could you could be 100 feet away from me where there would be no natural GSR getting to you except by way of the transfer from me to you.
That's correct. But with my test, I wouldn't be able to tell you one way or the other which one is if it's a transfer or if it's there because the proximity to the firearm and the gunshot residue.
Okay. I thank you, Dr. Castro. I'll pass the witness.
Dr. Castro, Robert Rogers, just a few questions for you. How gunshot residue gets on a particular surface is outside of anybody's knowledge or expertise, correct? I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, correct?
Correct. Gunshot residue can be deposited on a surface due to firing a firearm, meaning the proximity of the firearm, or by transfer, by contacting something with gunshot residue. But I wouldn't be able to specifically pinpoint in any particular case, yes, it's this explanation, the person fired a gun, or the person definitely was in the proximity of the gun when it was fired. It all has to be looked through the circumstances of the case and all the other evidence for that particular case.
And just to be clear, the two particles, characteristics of primer gunshot residue that were confirmed on the sample stub from the inside door trim of the inside door right side, that is consistent. It is consistent with a firearm being discharged near that surface, correct?
Yes, either discharge of a firearm in the proximity of that surface or wiping a firearm or firearm components or an object with primer gunshot residue against that surface.
And with regard to the gunshot residue on the complainant's hand, transfers of possible proximity, being in the proximity of a firearm that was discharged is a possibility that you can't, with any reasonable certainty, say that a range of fire, whether it was 10 feet or more than 10 feet, correct?
I wouldn't be able to give a specific distance.
Nothing further?
Nothing further.
And the doctor be excused?
No objection.
Thank you very much, Dr. Castro. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. It's 2:20. We'll start back at 2:40.